Hello, my name is Danielle Childers, and I'm here to present my findings on homeless students in the college community. Firstly, I wanted to explain student homelessness to begin with. Students already at a financial disadvantage could end up becoming further disadvantaged when with the rising cost of education. The rising debt could really put student housing out of reach for them, so homelessness has become more seen. When school costs rise, the basic necessities for students end up being really, they put it on the back burner so that they can continue with school, whether that be not enough food, utilities, internet, whatever. These become, second to school. So another problem we're facing is that there's not very many well-paying jobs for people without college degrees. Only 11% of homeless students reported making $15 an hour or more. And I know everyone's like, $15 per hour, that sounds great. And it is, but when you're working full time, and again, this is best case scenario, when you're working full time, it's very burdensome to try and do either an in-person program. Even going to school online can really be hard. You're really feeling pulled in many different directions. As for financial aid and affording college, students are able to report on their FAFSA if they're homeless, that they are unaccompanied and independent, so that they're able to not have to use their parents' tax information for student financials, which is great. I'm glad this happened for them so that they're able to report the little amount of income that they are receiving and to get the necessary amount of financial aid that they would need. It doesn't always cover everything, unfortunately, but it does help. So, a third of the community college students I found are reported being hungry or having house insecurity. Again, house insecurity would be that you are constantly moving, you're not able to afford your rent, but all of these students were receiving financial aid and they were working, which is a very upsetting statistic. Sometimes, even if you're working and receiving financial aid, your housing costs could really skyrocket. Maybe it doesn't even cover the area in terms of cost. 32% of first-generation students reported having major concerns about financing their education. And it just comes to the fact that many homeless students are first-generation. They don't have parents that went to school and understand, and maybe the parents, because of that education, don't have jobs to help pay for it. There's no way of financing their education instead of financial aid and working. What's great about this statistic really coming to light is that many of these campus programs are starting. So Bunker Hill Community College in Boston, they have 25 food assistant programs on campus. And again, that's staggering that they need so many. But it is a real problem, and many schools are now starting these food pantries and kind of following suit for their students who can't afford it. Another option is Amherst College keeps their dorms open all summer in case students have nowhere to go. That's huge. Many of these homeless students don't have anywhere to go. They can't leave for summer. They are probably going to shelters when the school kicks them out of their dorm. So this was a huge deal that I found, and I'm glad that Amherst College is kind of leading the way in this idea. And as for teaching, when I plan on teaching these homeless students, I think my golden rule for them will be understanding. Students don't always have access to materials that we would take for granted, technology, internet, even pens, pencils. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true. They cost money. And unfortunately, sometimes if they're in shelters, they're not going to have a great atmosphere to work on their homework. So that would be something I would consider. Maybe whether it be extensions or late work. But 47.1% of freshmen take on jobs to finance their education. So again, maybe the late work and extensions for them as well. If they just get stuck at work or they need more time, I would take that into consideration. Another thing I would consider is maybe starting a non-personal Facebook for my students that they can reach me and keep in touch if they have questions. Maybe a little too personal not to. It would be too personal to give them my cell phone number, for example. I would consider it, but giving them this Facebook page that's not my own personal page would give them access and appropriate access to me. And perhaps, especially with homeless students, maybe their cell phone has been disconnected. It gives them access to me instead of maybe just not even doing their assignment because they can't get in touch with me. Another thing I would take advantage of is having all my students participate in community-based learning. It would establish their understanding of the differences between their peers and really understand the difficulties that their peers go through. It's hard to think in someone else's shoes and to see what's going on outside of what we would consider a cushier world. But it would just help them not just understand the issue, but to perhaps see that maybe their friends are going through this struggle and see that their other peers are going through this and help out. Another thing I will consider is adjusting my time to be a little bit more available to my students for homework assistance. I've read that these students do a lot better with meeting with me than maybe studying on their own or maybe studying on their own or strategies in teaching. It would just make that concept maybe a little bit easier for them to understand. Just to give you even more an understanding of what homeless student life looks like, you can imagine that this could be very embarrassing for my homeless students. They may not even report that they're homeless just because they're so ashamed about it. And it would be really hard for us to understand what that real number is and how many of homeless students we have across the country. It's also been reported that students that maybe are staying on their friend's couch, live in their cars, maybe don't consider themselves homeless, that they are, they have somewhere to go and they have a place to rest their head at night, so they don't consider that being homeless, and in reality it is. But many community college students are 29 and older, and that's another shame, that you're getting older and you don't really want to tell your parents you're struggling because you feel like you should be old enough to take care of yourself, but sometimes it is too hard. You got to reach out and ask for help, and that's very humbling sometimes. These students will end up usually dropping out of school with this financial burden instead of asking for help, which really, of course, cuts down their chances of finishing school. That, as you can imagine, you always hear, don't ever take a break from school because you'll never go back. Sometimes that's true. So it's definitely something to consider. Homeless students are also a lot more stressed than say maybe you or I would be. When you're going out with going without your basic needs, it's very hard to not only function with life, but in school. So you're not only just thinking about your schoolwork, but you're thinking about, what am I going to eat today? How am I going to brush my teeth? Did I brush my teeth? Is my hair even combed? Can I afford that comb? It's very stressful for students. So you end up seeing this a lot more often, that they are just, life is too hard and they are stressed about it. So thank you for listening to me. This is, again, my research on the homeless student life in the college setting, and I appreciate you listening. Thank you.